Now we'll get into Brush Street Beat presented by McLaren Health Care. Today's guest is Chris McCosky, sports writer for the Detroit News. Chris, as always, it's great to see you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks, guys. Good to be here.
We've got some exciting Tigers news to talk about with AJ Hinch being named the new Tigers manager. Chris, just give me your initial reaction to the hire.
Oh, it's a coup. It's a coup for them because under normal circumstances, if there were more teams, more contending teams who needed a manager, or if, a lot of other factors could have happened that they wouldn't have got them. They just where they are in the rebuild, there probably would have been better. Chicago White Sox were probably a better team to go to, but the ownership in Chicago really wanted Tony La Russa. The tight bond between Jerry Reinsdorf and La Russa paid off. They got him, and that opened the doors. And I know the Tigers were worried about maybe a short-term PR hit because of the cheating scandal, but really, when you put all things together and you look at really what his involvement was, and the fact that really he didn't mastermind it, he was opposed to it. In fact, just didn't do anything to stop it, which was his crime, and he admitted to it. And he was contrite and apologetic, and the type of manager they've got for this situation where they are, it's just perfect. It couldn't have fallen into a better spot for them, for the Tigers.
Chris, I know we talked about earlier, was this going to be a bridge hire, meaning that this was somebody between Gardenhire and the guy when the team was really, really ready to make a move? Obviously, this is a long-term move. I'm kind of curious, what does AJ Hinch bring? Because I know Daniella hears it. I know you do. Would this accelerate the timeline of a Torkelson or a Riley Green? I know it's up to the individual player, but he's been in this situation before. He seems like he's a guy that he likes kind of baptism under fire, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but that's not how the process works, really. He's really good. He's got a background in development, and I think that will help. But the players determine when they're ready. I think where he helps out is just his understanding of the game, his understanding of people. He's kind of a perfect blend between baseball acumen, old school baseball acumen and ethics and analytics. He's got that background too. And the Tigers have finally gotten their technology and data base and everything to a point where, I mean, they're as good as anybody right now. And for him to come in 3 years ago when they didn't have all that infrastructure would have been a waste of his time. Well, he's coming in now, and that infrastructure is set, and the development and the technology is there. So that's where that's going to all come together. The player's talent is always going to determine how fast they get here. And I think that those timelines, especially for Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, are the same. I mean, I think, within a year. I mean, not in 21, but maybe at the end of 21 and for sure in 22. I think that's what they're hoping for.
Chris, this may be a tough question to answer, but he talked about it, he being AJ Hinch, a little bit in his press conference, getting the players to buy in and not having them live by this cheating scandal and everything that happened in AJ Hinch's past. And we know that players around the league were pretty upset about the entire scandal. Do you foresee any issues in getting these players to buy into his new baseball regimen and what he wants to do with this organization?
Not at all. Not at all. I think it'll be harder for Alex Cora to do that, in Boston if he gets the Boston job, because he was a more hands-on with that, with the methods that they were using to cheat. I think AJ is going to be. This is the best part about him. He's going to go right to him, look him in the face, and say, "This is my story. It's not your story, and it's in the past. And I'm moving past it. We're moving past it." I think he'll have some good conversations with maybe Michael Fulmer, who was victimized by the sign stealing a little bit. Maybe Matthew Boyd. I'm not sure Matthew Boyd pitched against them that year in Houston. But some of the guys, Daniel Norris is another one. So those conversations will be a little, I say, well, he'll have to say what he told Al and Christopher Illich to get them to see that he's not, that he was paid his penance, so to speak, and was a good for this job. I don't think that's going to be a problem with the players at all. They want to win. They want to learn. And they know that he's got that pedigree and he's got that cachet just from, winning a World Series title and all the success he had in Houston.
Chris, I know that and I don't want to keep belaboring this this cheating scandal. Obviously, the Astros cheated. We all know it. A lot of people are still angry about it. I'm kind of curious. I mean, it seems AJ Hinch, as you said, has been upfront about it. He's asked, when is this going to go away? He seems like a realist to me because he doesn't know. He wishes it would go away, but this could be something that could always follow him, right? But it depends on how he actually handles it.
Well, this is the thing that's going to happen. Every city we go into this coming season, the first day we're there, the media is going to ask that question and dredge that back up. It's going to happen first time through the league, and hopefully, he'll do enough and accomplish enough, and enough time will pass where that will get further and further into the background. Again, I mean, he said it. He'll say it over and over and repeatedly. He takes full responsibility for not doing enough to stop it. That's his crime, and that's why he was suspended without pay for a year. That's why the trajectory of his career was halted. He's got to pretty much, start afresh here in Detroit, and he's grateful for that opportunity to do that and to prove his own integrity. And that's going to be kind of part of his mission going forward. At the same time, he's going to make it so it's not about his players. It's not about the Detroit Tigers. And I think he's going to be very good at that. I think he's going to be very good at creating that separation so that the players in Detroit don't have to answer those questions.
Excited to see what AJ Hinch brings to the organization, as I'm sure all of the Tigers fans are as well. Chris, I do want to switch gears a little bit and talk about free agency. We're nearing the point where teams are allowed to talk to other free agents aside from their own. Do you have any predictions at what the Tigers might do during this free agency period?
I don't think they could tell you right now what they're going to do because there's so many variables from the fact that, they don't know what kind of revenue they're going to be able to produce next year. They don't know if there's going to be fans in the stands. They don't know how many games are going to be played. They're coming off the COVID year where, they had to lay off people. They had to lay off a lot of people within the organization. So even though from payroll standpoint, the only contract on the books is Miguel Cabrera's $30 million. They're in a position where they could spend money. But when you don't know what your revenue stream is going to be for 2021, you don't know a lot of things that's going to happen after. I think there's talk now about extending the current collective bargaining agreement beyond 21. So that might be a situation where that might make them willing to give a couple multi-year contracts. But honestly, I don't see this as the year that they go out and spend really big, although they could. I think that they're going to try to get a lot of pieces for limited money and try to fill some holes this year. And then 22 might be the year that they really go out and maybe go after some big pieces.
Chris, ever since you were on the last time, something has stuck with me, which I think is a great point in that we don't talk about. No, seriously, you made a good point, Chris, and I'm always going to remember it. Yeah, they're few and far between, my friend. No. I know, no, but seriously, about pitching, you said that. Look, even Matthew Boyd, no starting pitcher pitched enough innings for next season, so to speak. Right. Their arms still are young arms, shall we say, or untested to a certain degree. So even though Daniella asked you about free agency, I'm pretty curious. They're going to have to sign some veteran starting pitching. Is that maybe their top priority, even over second, first, corner, outfield, some of the other positions we've talked about?
I think it's a priority. I don't know that I don't think it's a top priority because I think they have a lot of arms in the system still right now. I know there's going to be a couple. I believe there'll be a couple starting pitchers that they'll bring in, but they got to get a catcher, right? I mean, they have. I would think catcher might be the one where they could. I mean, people will cringe, but I mean, James McCann is the second best catcher on the market this year after Real Muto. So that catchers you got to either get a first baseman or a third baseman, depending on where you want to play Jamer Candelario. You need a middle, you need a second baseman. If you think Willie Castro is your shortstop, you need a second baseman. The thing about this is there's going to be a lot of players on the market, a lot of good players who, because of the way the market is, the price is going to come down. So they could actually fill a few holes relatively cheaply with pretty good players. You already seen that the teams are not renewing contracts, not picking up options. Brad Hand, the closer for the Indians, had a $10 million option. Not only did the Indians not pick it up, The 29 other teams could have got him for $10 million and nobody bid on him. So that tells you how the market is going to be. Just Colton Wong, second baseman, who would fit really well in what the Tigers are doing. The Cardinals didn't pick up his $12.5 million option. So, I mean, there's going to be really good players on the market who I think they could get affordably.
So, Chris, what do you think about a guy like Jonathan Scope or maybe even CJ Cron, who are free agents? Do you see the Tigers re-signing them, or are they going to go elsewhere? You're talking about a second baseman, and there's also Austin Romine, but from your point of view, they might look elsewhere for a catcher.
Yeah, honestly, Danielle, I wish I knew exactly. Al Avila has been really good at not answering these kind of questions, and for good reason. He doesn't want to tip his hand. So honestly, I don't know how they're going to do this. I think Jonathan Scope would come cheaper than Colton Wong, and I think Jonathan Scope was a good fit. The question is somebody else think he's a good fit too, and they may go after him. I would think of all the guys that the Tigers had last year, our free agents going forward, Scope is probably the guy that's most likely to come back. But I mean, you can't say it for sure. I mean, and plus, AJ is involved now too a little bit, so he's going to have a different viewpoint maybe on some of these things as well. So it changes the dynamic a little bit.
Chris, real quickly, one thing I have to ask you about is that I know Tiger fans were doing somersaults down Woodward, those that, at a social distance, of course, but when they heard that Justin Verlander, and they were masked up, when Justin Verlander reached out to AJ Hinch, and now everybody thinks JV's back. He's going to finish his career as a Tiger. Do you know anything about, do they have a special relationship, or was this just Verlander offering his congratulations to AJ Hinch for being named Tigers manager?
Yeah, I think that was it. And then AJ, of course, would ask him about the organization he grew up in. And JV, he has no ill feelings about the Tigers organization. He loves the Tigers organization. And I don't think it's beyond the realm. I mean, he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's not going to pitch at all next year. So we have to wait and see how that is for him coming back, what kind of pitcher he is. But I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he finishes his career in a Tigers uniform. I mean, he's said before that if he goes in the Hall of Fame, he's a Tiger. So, I mean, I don't think that's beyond the scope. But the conversation was a no-brainer. You talk to guys who that you managed, who came from the Tigers organization. And there's no more honest guy than JV. That for sure.
I'm glad I let you have that question, Art, because it's an interesting point. It'd be fun to see JV back in Detroit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We really appreciate it. We'll definitely be talking to you soon. And of course, a big thank you to McLaren Health Care for presenting Brush Street Beat right here on the Word on Woodward.